Hey everybody, this week we're talking a lot about water, whether it be protecting our marine resources or our freshwater supplies. And I wanted to talk a little further about that and kind of bring up a few statistics and a few things that maybe you haven't thought of yet or perhaps didn't see in the reading. And one of the big issues that we have is that we take water very much for granted. Many of us anyway, we think we will always have it, and so we don't always think about how to wisely use it, how to be conservative with our use. We just figure it's an endless supply, and I want to pose a question to you. And would you consider, based on what you know on or of the water cycle, do you think that water should be considered a renewable or non-renewable resource? And think about that for a minute, because if it's a non-renewable resource, it means we have a finite amount of it, and then when it's gone, it's gone. And if it's renewable, then are we using it up faster than it can be replenished? It's something to think about, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But give it some thought, and in your head at least, think about that question. Now, in this graphic here, I know this is something you've probably seen in your reading as well, but it kind of gives you a breakdown of um, where our water is found. And 95% of it, actually almost 97% of it, is found in the oceans. We are called the blue marble for a reason, the water planet, whatever you want to say. And the vast majority of our water resources are salt water, oceans and seas and so forth. So it leaves about 2.5% is fresh water. And if interesting, look over here on this bar here. The majority of it's tied up in ice. 70% of our fresh water is in glaciers, and most of that in Antarctica. So you can see the issues that people have when think about that ice sheet melting. Not only will sea levels rise significantly, but there goes a whole chunk of our fresh water. And 30% of that fresh water is our groundwater, which is where we get our water to brush our teeth and drink and cook with and everything else. And then beyond that, the remaining portion, a lot of it is ground ice and permafrost and lakes. But look over here, I mean, rivers, they make up less than 0.5%. You think about rivers like the Amazon and the Nile and the Mississippi, it's a lot of water, but 0.5%. It's pretty amazing. Okay, so just to give you a sense of how that breaks down. Um, Now that you've had a moment to ponder the question about water being a renewable or a non-renewable resource, let me throw something at you, and that is, um, when you think about the world's population, has that been stagnant or has that been actively growing and getting bigger and bigger as we go through the years versus our water resources? Um, One way to look at this is that if you let's go back roughly 2,000 years in Earth's history, there might have been an estimate, estimations, maybe 200,000 people on the Earth versus the 7 billion we have now. So 200,000 people. But what's interesting is we have the same amount of water today, 2,000 years later, as we did then, 2,000 years ago, with only 200,000 people versus 7 billion. So how we managed to continue to use that same finite amount of water with many-fold more people on the Earth. The water cycle, okay, the hydrologic cycle, continually recycles water. It doesn't add to it. It simply recycles it. Okay, it's a continuous loop. It could rain like a son of a gun, and some percentage of that water, regardless, of that rain is going to infiltrate the ground and soak in and become part of the groundwater, and perhaps make it to an aquifer. A good portion of that's going to run off into the world's oceans eventually via many streams and rivers and so forth. It's eventually going to wind up in the world's oceans. But then it's going to evaporate from the ocean and condense in the sky, precipitate down, and so forth. So it's a continuous cycle. So you're not really adding anything more to it. We have a finite supply here, guys. This is what makes this issue so important, and where education is critical, that we think about how we use our water, because as we continue to grow, now estimates are that by the 21st century, which is not all that long, that far away, looking at 11, I'm sorry, not 11, but 9 billion people. Okay, 9 billion people in the world. And we're going to have the same amount of water we have today, to use for that. So depending on what happens with glaciers and so forth, so in terms of how much they melt. So it's something to really take seriously and to educate ourselves and set the examples, particularly if we have children, to set the examples of how to be how to use our water resources wisely, how to conserve it. I'll leave you with a final thought. I want you to look up, if you haven't come across this, look up the Aguala Aquifer. Okay, OG Aguala, ALLA, I think. I spell it all the time or write it out, and here I'm trying to say it to you. I'm not sure if I'm spelling it right, but it's Aguala Aquifer. It's a huge aquifer under the midwestern part of the United States, and part of the western part of the United States. It's through Texas and up through Nebraska and Kansas and so forth. It's a huge aquifer that supplies a lot of agriculture, a lot of farmers, and a lot of households and businesses in the Midwest and western part of the United States. And I want you to look that up and see what's happening to that aquifer, and primarily due to a lot of discharge through agricultural irrigational practices. So check out the Aguala Aquifer, and let me know your thoughts on that and what we can do to conserve water. What are you doing? Are you doing things differently? Do you take water for granted? Do you consciously think about, when you leave the water running to brush your teeth, or do you take a 20-minute shower, or whatever the case may be? I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on water usage and water conservation, and how maybe you might be passing that knowledge on to children or siblings or friends, whatever the case may be. So, all right. That being said, I will say goodbye for now, and I will talk to y'all soon. I'll talk to y'all very soon. Sorry. Have a great day.